Hey, thanks, Lamila. It's great to be with you and to be with everybody. I think it's really important to understand that there's a very significant geopolitical, geostrategic aspect to this. Transnational financial repression is part of a much larger campaign of political subversion and what some people are calling now gray zone warfare or hybrid warfare, waged by what I would describe as an axis of aggressors centered on two revanchist or revisionist powers on the Eurasian landmass of China and Russia, who have pulled into the fold other actors such as Iran, North Korea, until recently Venezuela, the Cuban army regime in the Western Hemisphere, others who share their authoritarian form of government. And it's really important to note that what they're attempting to do is is to tear down the existing international order, the existing rules of international discourse, and replace them with new sets of rules that are sympathetic to their authoritarian forms of government, and in China's case in particular, its statist mercantilist economic model. They are cooperating more closely than ever. And so, really, what that means is we need to cooperate across our democratic countries more closely than ever to counter this sustained campaign of subversion, intimidation, these actions of transnational financial repression and other forms of intimidation, other forms of lawfare, other forms of harassment are connected to even more significant direct actions against Europe in particular. And I'm talking about the cutting of undersea cables, the drone incursions, the blowing up of warehouses, the blowing up of rail lines, assassination contracts on an executive, a senior executive of a defense firm. And so it's important. It's important to engage to fight this kind of repression, because as we know, as we're watching football now, internationally, if you're not on the pitch, you're going to lose. And so I think it's important to understand the nature of these campaigns, what they're trying to do. Of course, they're trying to intimidate people and extinguish hope, any kind of hope in ability to counter the campaigns of these regimes, but to challenge their system of authoritarian rule. And this is essentially an effort to exert control over the life chances of those who are opposed to these regimes, expose their abuse and expose the corruption in their systems. It's important to understand, how they do this, the mechanisms they use. As we're talking about the use of Interpol, for example, but other financial actions, digital surveillance is associated with this. So are direct threats, threats against relatives within those countries. But then also on the extreme side, we know that there's physical violence. We know that there have been scores of assassinations in Europe by the Iranians, for example. We all understand, obviously, the case of Navalny or the Skripal poisonings in Salisbury. So this is part of a much broader campaign. And of course, this campaign also entails the subversion of international organizations and efforts by these authoritarian regimes to turn these organizations against their very purpose. Hey, so what can we do? We've heard some great ideas already today, but I would suggest really 5 key actions. The first is expose this intimidation and repression. We have to really map it, understand the networks, understand also the degree to which organizations like the SVR and the GRU and the MSS work together in their efforts to intimidate and to turn organizations against their purpose and engage in this kind of financial repression, other forms of lawfare. The second thing is we have to educate our own populations and also the diaspora communities that are part of this campaign of intimidation, so we can organize and we can support one another. Which is the third point, is supporting the victims. The type of financial reforms that are necessary when you close a bank account, having to just announce that, why are you closing a bank account, for example, and then being able to have quick legal remedies available for those who are the victims of this kind of intimidation. The fourth is we have to counter these efforts and we have to deter them. And there's some simple things we can do, like that it took us a long time to do, too long to do. It was expel all undeclared intelligence operators from hostile authoritarian regimes. And we have to go offensive, I think, in a lot of these areas, by mapping and disrupting these intimidation networks and going after them with legal means across our own nations. The fifth thing is, hey, we have to reform or replicate or replace international organizations that are no longer fit for purpose. And so, in Interpol, I mean, the executive committee, and we have to dominate that with democratic countries, whose systems are compatible with the initial mission of that organization. We have to form democratic caucuses within international organizations so we can advocate together. And then, hey, I think we have to expel the abusers. And if we can't expel the abusers, hey, then it might be time to form a new organization. And I know that would take a lot of work, but maybe it's something maybe of just forming an executive committee of countries that are committed to not abusing the organization and adhering to its initial mission, and excluding others from that executive committee and make that executive committee what actually functions. But it's a real honor to be with everybody. The stakes are high here. We've been complacent about this problem. I really give credit to all of you for shining the light on this problem as a first step in being able to counter this important aspect of how authoritarian regimes, how this axis of aggressors are attempting, again, to rewrite the rules of international discourse in their favor. Thank you.